the thing that I always remind people is that even if you think you don't have an estate plan, you actually do have an estate plan because the government has been so kind as to create one for you. So if you have not created an estate plan, you get the default plan that the government has, which is probate. And probate is it's really a lawsuit against your family paid for with your own money for the benefit of the creditors and for the benefit of the state. I'm in California. I'm in Southern California.
Mhm.
But as I mentioned, I do have clients with properties in other states. But I'm also part of a national network of attorneys who are all committed to doing estate planning in a relational way. So that was the other thing. What really sets me apart from other estate planning attorneys is I believe in doing law relationally, meaning I
Okay.
don't just hand people a set of documents and say good luck. I actually develop a relationship with them, really help them design outcomes that make sense. And then every 3 years, I check in with them and I give them a no-cost review just to make sure that their plan is aligned, because plans being out of date is one of the big reasons why estate plans don't work the way that people intend. So it's kind of like your brand is beyond the listing, mine is beyond the documents.
So you kind of get to, so like in my business, you get to know the people, and
Mm-hmm.
find out what their goals are and what they need and what they want, and why they're doing what they're doing. I'm assuming that's kind of, you seem like a really caring person.
Oh,
Just a few
thank you.
minutes that we've talked, I'm assuming that your business is a little bit like my business, where you get to know and you find out what their needs are, and then you try to facilitate all those needs, right? So how can I help you in the best way that I can help you, and how it's going to benefit you?
Absolutely. Actually, I was looking at your site and saw that one of your clients said that you gave up family time on the weekends just to make sure that they found their forever home. And that's
Mhm.
exactly the kind of relationship first approach that I'm taking when I say like estate planning should feel personal. I meet with clients Saturday mornings
Yeah.
because sometimes they're busy parents and they have no other time to meet with an attorney. So we'll do Saturday morning appointments, we'll do evening appointments for people with newborns or whatnot, because more than half of Americans don't have an estate plan, even though they know it's important. And it's just because life gets busy.
Hmm.
And everyone knows it's important. It's just something we just don't get around to it.
Well, you
So I
just
try to
don't
make it as
think
easy.
of it.
Yeah.
Just you
Yeah.
never, you just don't think of it until you need it, right? So
Hmm.
that's so I was the executrix of my mom and dad's estate, and so I know how important it is, and I know, and we talk about it all the time, and we have a lot of it set, but it's things that we've done for ourselves, and we need somebody like you to kind of put it all together and to kind of talk things out. Have we done it yet? No, we have not done it yet. I know we should, just to finalize how and have that expertise on how we want everything to be and what our
Hmm.
goals are,
Hmm.
because you should always have those goals, right? Just like in
Yeah.
purchasing a house.
Hmm.
I really take my time out, and I really try to assess what people need, because this is their home. And, this is where their heart's at, right? And this is where they're going to
Hmm.
raise their family, and this is where they're going to do everything. So I'm assuming that, again, planning the estate for you is a lot like that.
It is. It is. I think it's really it's a personal process. And
Mhm.
uh I don't know if I mentioned, but I recently came out with a book about estate planning called Your After Credits Scene,
Yep.
because that's what it is. Like when the credits roll on your life and there's that one more scene after the credits, that's you designing your estate plan. That's what that is that transition to what happens next. And that can be whatever we want it to be. And that's why I say like estate planning isn't just about getting some documents, legal documents signed. It's about designing the outcome that you want for your family, for your legacy, to make sure that your family isn't going to be stuck in court, isn't going to be spending tens of thousands of dollars that they wouldn't have to if you had an estate plan in place, and making sure that relationships are honored and preserved. We don't like to think about how families fight after
Whew.
there's a loss.
Mhm.
But yeah, that it happens because one of the biggest reasons I think is because there's no clarity. It blindsides everyone. People react to grief in different ways.
Sure.
And no one ever sets out thinking I'm going to be the bad guy and do all these bad things. Most of the time, people are acting with the best intentions.
Sure.
Even not even just around property, but think about end of life situations.
Mhm.
One person wants to keep mom on life support, the other one doesn't. One wants a feeding tube, the other one. So having this clarity prevents the conflicts that can arise from the uncertainty.
Well, people are very much in their feelings too. And
Hmm.
they don't understand that I think everybody's very much in their feelings. So, like, I just went to a funeral this weekend and, it's for somebody very young in my family, in their 30s, right? But I'm
Yes.
not necessarily the absolute most sentimental person when it comes to things, right? Uh, things and things like that. But I've got other people in my family that are very sentimental about the things and they're very
Hmm.
in their feelings about these things. So if there's a plan on the things and
Hmm.
you respect people's wishes and if it was written down, it would just go so much easier.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, and siblings come to blows on things that you wouldn't expect. I've seen sibling relationships fracture over who gets dad's tool set.
Hmm.
Something as simple as that, but there's that feelings, like you said, the sentimental value.
Sure.
Different things mean different things to different people. It's so that's part of estate planning is having that clarity, putting your wishes in writing,
Hmm.
having the peace of mind that you've done it. And now if something happens to you, your loved ones will be able to have some sort of compass, something to guide them through instead of feeling lost, trying to deal with this, trying to deal with court, trying to deal with the legal things while they're trying to deal with their grief.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in the way you would deal with something and the way I would deal with something or the way, my
Mhm.
brother or my sister would have dealt with something or something that's totally different. So having
Yeah.
these things in written down and having the person, it's just always better, I think, to have a document or maybe not, something saying this is the way it should be.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, and then any good plan will work both legally. I mean, it'll work legally, not just legally, but relationally and practically.
It's not
Yeah.
me. It's in the plan.
And that's one of the things actually in my book. I talk about how for spouses, right? I make this joke that I love my husband. I think he's a catch, and as long I'm gonna if I die first, he will have a lot of women after him.
Yes.
And I want to make sure that, whatever I leave behind does not go to someone who takes advantage of him while he's grieving. And you
Mhm.
can build those things into your estate plan, and because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. And it actually protects your spouse from any future issues they have. What if a family member comes to them and their kid has cancer? You got this
Mm.
big inheritance from your spouse. Can't you just give me some money? And then they can say, no, actually, this trust says it's only for our children. I can't spend the money for
Oh,
medical
that's
bills
awesome.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So things like that can protect them, protect their heart, and make it so that they're not in a position where they have to be pulled apart because of being alone and being vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome because I also have a terrific husband and I've taught him well throughout the years as he
Hmm.
has me for sure. And I would not want him definitely to be alone, and I want him to go on and have a wonderful life. And that's a long ways away, but I would want something in his grieving that he was not taken advantage of. So that's
Absolutely.
terrific to
Yeah.
know that there is a document that could take care of him for that.
Yeah, and the documents are kind of the tools to execute the plan. So once
Mhm.
you have a solid plan, once you have your priorities in place, a good legal counselor will walk you through that, and then the documents just become a byproduct, a natural byproduct of the plan. And a lot of people think that, well, it's okay, I got this in joint tenancy, it's fine, or whatnot. And that can lead to unexpected outcomes as well. That's kind of what happens if something happens to both of you.
Yeah.
Then you're still stuck in probate. Actually, there's a story that I tell. My mom's friend during the pandemic, his mother, well, before the pandemic, his mother lost her husband, inherited the money, remarried, took a large part of that inheritance towards buying a new home with her new husband. They became separated shortly before the pandemic, and she unfortunately passed away during the pandemic. So the home went to the new husband, and her
Yes.
kids got nothing from her, because that was her main asset. Was she put everything into that home?
And this was the money that she had gotten from the father of
Mm-hmm.
the children. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
So those things can happen, and if people are not paying attention to how things are titled, or they're just relying, or they're just hoping for the best, right? I think a lot of times people hope for the best, or they think, I don't want to have a plan because it'll just make things more complicated. Or they'll go on LegalZoom and think, okay, I'll just get a simple document because I want a simple outcome. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Sometimes the simple documents make things more complicated
Sure.
because you don't really know what the assumptions are of the documents.
So the name of your book is the Year After Credit Scene, A Nerd's
Hmm.
Guide to Wills, Trust, and Legacy.
Yes.
What prompted you to write this book? Was it because of what you had seen and just kind of a thought of, oh, people need to really know this stuff?
Well, definitely education is the main
I love
purpose
the
of the
Nerd's
book.
Guide.
Well, I'm actually a big nerd. I grew up being a fan of Star Trek and Star Wars and Marvel movies and comic books and
Yeah.
anime. And I went to comic book conventions and anime conventions, in high school and
Do you have a
college.
costume?
So I have a Miss Marvel costume that I have worn at LA Comic Con.
I
Uh,
love it.
I have a couple other things. I've done cosplay.
Yeah.
But so as I started talking to people about estate planning, I would just find these connections, or as I was watching things, I'd find these connections and I would say things like, look, to parents, you don't want your child to wind up like Harry Potter.
Mm,
Do you have a Petunia Dursley in your life
sure.
who has opposite values? Or, hey, did you know Game of Thrones is basically a blended family with bad estate planning? Or and so I had all these ideas and I thought, I'm going to go to a local comic book convention and see how people react to this idea of you can learn about estate planning through things like WandaVision or Star Wars.
Mhm.
And the reaction was really good. People really resonated with it. I actually wound up getting a couple as a client through that first convention, and I helped them do their estate plan. And unfortunately, less than 2 years later, the husband passed.
Mm,
But I remember when they became my clients, they said they would never have, started their estate plan if they hadn't met me at a comic book convention. So I thought there's this whole audience of people who need to understand this stuff.
sure.
It's I don't think the lawyers make it easy for people to understand estate planning usually. So, what if I just wrote a book that just put it in plain terms, made some analogies to pop culture, put some stories in, and just explain what estate planning is in just normal plain English. No legalese, no crazy things, just here's what it is, here's what it can do, here's why the DIY stuff doesn't work, and here's what you need to look for when you're finding an attorney.
Sure. No, I love that. We were just talking about some new forms today and the way they were written. And I'm like, well, your average Joe Bob's not going to be able to understand that.
Hmm.
So um and I love that it's dumbed down for the normal person. So I would be able to read it. So is that what you're trying to tell me? Yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to make it more relatable, not
Yeah.
necessarily dumbed down. Honestly, I think attorneys might make things too complicated,
Right.
because we went to law school, we were taught to think a certain way, and it's very easy for attorneys to look at a family and think of them as a fact pattern because that's
Sure.
how we were trained. But for me, maybe it's my background in catastrophic personal injury litigation. I cared for families after the worst day of their
Mhm.
life. And so this is kind of the opposite where I get to plan for that worst day not to be so bad. And I see people as the people that they are. And
Sure.
I ask them what's important to them. And I don't try to analyze them from a legalese perspective because I've had families that look exactly the same on paper, but
Mhm.
they picked completely different plans, thousands of dollars apart, just because they had different priorities. And it's a personal thing, you know,
Sure.
just like a home, right? You know,
It is
you
just like a home. It is sometimes it's very, very surprising to me when you meet their what the real focus is, right? So they may say
hmm
one thing, and you really got to pay attention. They may say one thing, but their focus is something totally different. So
yes,
you really have to pay attention and you really have to listen. But that's a matter of getting to know them
exactly.
and listening and talking and
hmm
communicating. Yeah, I love that. So when you went to law school and you decided this is, what I'm going to do, was estate planning your original
No,
focus? No.
no, not at all.
I was going to
So,
say you said something a few minutes ago that
yeah,
was very technical, and I thought, oh,
yeah.
so this sounds so
Well,
much funner.
Well, I didn't think it was at the time. So my first job out of law school was actually with Johnnie Cochran's law firm. I
Oh,
know some of your listeners
interesting.
might not.
The glove don't fit. You must have quit.
Yeah, I was actually hired right before he passed away. But I was working in the civil litigation department doing trial work, dealing with wrongful death cases, all those things. Very intense stuff.
Yeah,
Trial lawyers are the kind of lawyers you see on movies and TV.
yeah,
So there's a certain like image of them. And estate planning lawyers, honestly, not the same image. So I never really thought I would do estate planning because in my head I thought, well, don't estate planning lawyers just fill out documents? That sounds kind of boring. When after I left litigation and met my mentor, and she explained to me how, yeah, most of the industry does actually, they work on a documents only model and they're just filling out documents or putting people's names on documents. But there's a more satisfying way to practice law in this
sure,
particular field, which is relational, which is you get to know people, you create a lifetime relationship with them, and you basically are this trust advisor. I'm a trusted advisor for my clients through the different seasons of life. It's so fulfilling. It's such an honor. It's amazing. I mean, I love what I do. I love being able to tell people things like, hey, at the end, in my book, I mentioned one of my clients when we were talking about his end of life preferences. He shared that he would want, if they ever had to pull the plug on him, he would want them to say, "May the force be with you." And he said that's nothing he would never have been able to share that with a normal lawyer, right? But he felt, that trust with me that he could
sure.
express his true wishes. It's just like what you said, getting to know a family, getting
Mhm.
to know what they really want. It doesn't happen in 2 minutes, right?
I love that. So, being the trusted advisor, and they'll just keep coming back to you time and time again. I know myself that my first client that I had, he still calls me, and I love that fact, right? And or I get invited to baby showers or
Oh,
graduations and things
yeah.
like that. So I get to be part of the family quite often, or at least invited. So. I'm
Yeah.
like
I
that
mean, I
I'm like
think,
that, second aunt or something like that, so
yeah, I think there's something really special about that. And
mhm,
I think, when estate planning attorneys are not usually on the list of advisors people think that they need, but really, realtors, estate planning attorneys, CPAs, and financial advisors,
mhm,
if they all know each other, they can all work on behalf of a family and
absolutely,
really just help that family build wealth and build generational wealth and make sure that it's protected in the future.
for sure.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like most people haven't thought about this though. they've never thought to, I should actually make these people talk to each other, or I should have all these people in my phone, or
Well, and I think you've really said that there. I mean, because you are building wealth. I know with the house and this, like I'm selling a house right now. They brought $700 to the table when they bought the first house 4 or 5 years later. 4 years later. Could be 5, I'm sorry. They're netting 123,000. I mean, and
mm,
it was just the good time that they bought it and the time that they're selling. But that's not a bad profit. And, I know
mm-hmm.
this doesn't happen every single time, but there's going to be nothing that builds your wealth faster than this, right? And it's a
Yes.
long game, but that's a
Mm-hmm.
that's a pretty good return, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's the same in your business and CPA.
Well, I think the home is really, most people, most families, it's their most valuable asset.
Mhm.
Their home is their biggest asset. It's where they have invested, not just living in it, but the big chunk of their wealth. So I always tell people that probate is a terrible process
Yes.
emotionally, and it's a public record. So there are a lot of predators out there trying to take advantage of family members who have lost someone. But also the cost, the monetary cost is going to be more money than what you would invest in an estate plan.
So getting into that in probate, because that is not a good process at all. Like I said, I was the executrix of my mom and dad's,
Mm,
and it,
mhm,
it was not a fun process at all.
mm.
But so, what happens if somebody dies and the property dies without it being in a will or a trust, right? So, what happens to the property?
Well, the thing that I always remind people is that even if you think you don't have an estate plan, you actually do have an estate plan because the government has been so kind as to create one for you. So if you have not created an estate plan, you get the default plan that the government has, which is probate. And probate is really, it's really a lawsuit against your family paid for with your own money for the benefit of the creditors and for the benefit of the state.
Hmm.
Because one of the big things, the purposes is to make sure that your creditors get paid. Well, which creditors? Who? It's open season. Anyone can come in and say that they were owed money. Anyone can come in with a will that is fake and that says that they actually get more than than ever contemplated. But that's the other thing, is a will. Sometimes people think a will get them out of probate, but a will actually ensures probate because wills are the instrument used in probate. Really, avoiding probate is a matter of either having a trust,
Hmm.
which is the main tool, or you can do what's called the transfer on death deed, which has become popular as an alternative. Basically putting a beneficiary designation on the house. But the problem with that is it doesn't work if you're incapacitated. So if you are in an accident and you are not able to make legal decisions and the house needs to be sold, you're stuck. But with a trust, someone can actually manage that for you. So with everything, there are pros and cons. That is going to keep your family out of probate. But a will actually guarantees probate because the will is used in probate. A will isn't enough to keep the family out of probate. So usually it's a trust
Right.
that is the main tool. And there's also a thing called a transfer on death deed, which has become more popular in recent years,
Right.
except that transfer on death deeds do have the downside of not being able to be used if you're incapacitated. And also, you can't plan contingencies with them. So it's a cheaper form, because sometimes you see TikTok videos.
Hmm.
Oh, you don't need a trust. You just need a transfer on death deed. But they don't say, hey, if you're in an accident and you can't make legal decisions for whatever reason, the house can't be sold. It can't be mortgaged. Nothing can be done with any of your financial accounts around the house because the transfer on death deed only works on death. So
Okay.
but a trust will cover incapacity. In a trust situation, your successor trustee can step in and manage the house for you while you are incapacitated. And then the contingency planning is a big thing too, because what if the person you name as a beneficiary on your transfer on death deed dies with you,
Oh.
then the house is still in probate. It still goes to probate because there's no contingency. Whereas with a trust, you can keep going with it. I keep saying, okay, now we're going to kill these people. These people were on a cruise with you. You were all on a cruise together and then the ship went down. Now who gets it? And we just keep going until they don't care. And then it goes to charity or it goes to their nearest living relative. Will it ever go that far? Probably not.
Right.
But at least you have those contingencies built in because who knows? What if you do? What if someone wins the lottery and the whole family goes on a cruise together? I don't know.
Well, and it's you are the person to think of it, and that's why you use an estate planner, right? So you are
Yes.
the person that needs to think of these because I'm not thinking of them. And most of the time, even the people that are doing a trust are not thinking. I mean, I would have never thought of to go beyond the original person that I would claim. See, now you're making me think even farther along. How many people do I go down? Well, you just keep going down because, yeah, what if you got the whole family with you?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and for people who have plans that are 10, 20 years old, this becomes actually even more important. I mean, you should never don't if your plan is 10 years old, it's time to update. But if for whatever reason, I had this one lady who called me. She was 90 years old. She created her plan when she was 70 and she never updated it because she was sure she was going to die any day. But, she lived 20 years. And when she first created her plan, she had no grandchildren. And then 20 years later, she had a bunch of grandchildren. She only had one son, and he was the only one named. And the contingency after him was her sister. And he was driving her to medical appointments. And I was like, what if you get hit by a car? Nothing goes to your grandchildren. Everything goes to your sister.
Wow. So well, that's great. That I honestly think you should use professionals, and most of the time you shouldn't do it yourself. But now I don't cut my own hair and I don't do my own nails, and I generally will pay other people to do these things for me just because I want them done right. Right now,
And the result's usually better.
the result is probably better. My mother, love her to death, and God rest her soul, pinched pennies like you would not believe. So she truly believed in doing most everything herself, right? And it didn't always work out. Hence, we had a will and we went to probate. And though things were set out, not everything was set out and not everything was done right. So there was a lot of things that didn't get necessarily handled the right way, and it could have went a lot smoother, and I could have closed the estate. It didn't necessarily need to take me 3-4 years to close the estate. It should have taken me a lot less time, and maybe if it had been done a different way, it wouldn't have taken me so long to close it out.
Well, it's not surprising because even a Supreme Court justice did his own estate plan and wound up costing his family over $250,000 of avoidable taxes. So it's a specialized thing. It's like someone could go on Zillow and list their house and have absolutely no strategy and no idea of what it is, what they can do to get the best result, right? So, I mean, it's kind of like that.
What's the most important legal document a person should have if they own a home and they have children?
Ooh, that's hard. I would say there are so many. Okay, so, well, I
Well, and I
think
would assume
absolutely,
it's a different thing if they're young children versus older children.
yes, exactly. So, someone with minor children, a trust is really important because without a trust, your children are going to inherit everything at 18. And I don't know about you, but when I was 18, I was not great with money.
Nope.
Um, and it's usually not a good idea for 18-year-olds to get vast amounts of wealth. It can be actually dangerous
No,
for
that
them.
stuff would have been gone for me.
Yeah.
Would have been shopping, for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. Yeah. So a trust is really important if it's a family with minor children and they have they have real estate that they don't want to go to probate. A trust is basically the way that we can opt out of the probate system by creating our own plan. So part of that whole thing, why I said also the legal documents thing is part of what I do is I do guardianship planning for minor children. I kind of touched on it earlier about how if you got a Petunia Dursley in your life, you need to make sure that they are excluded. Because what happens when, especially parents with young children, if they pass away, it's usually a traumatic event. It's usually an accident. There's usually a lawsuit attached. What happens when there's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit attached? What happens when suddenly there is all this property up for grabs? You're going to have relatives, well-meaning or not, say, I think I am the best one to come take care of the children.
Oh, sure.
And so it is important that you specify who would you want to actually be raising your children if you couldn't.
Yeah.
And I know that's a terrible question, an idea for parents to think of, which is why I frame it in the context of Harry Potter. It's a lot easier to think about it that way. But it's so important because otherwise, the alternative is having a judge who knows nothing about you making that decision. And sometimes family members look perfectly fine on paper, just like the Dursleys. They look like an average middle-class family, but their values were not the kind of values that you would want a child to be raised with.
For sure. They stuck them underneath the stairs. So they didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a window
Yeah.
for the longest time. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I would definitely, and again, that's why you have somebody that's professional that thinks about these things for you. How would you counsel somebody that doesn't think they have enough, right? Or I don't make enough money, or I don't have a house, or I just don't have enough yet. How would you
Yeah.
counsel somebody like that?
Well, that's another big myth about estate planning is
Mhm.
people think that it's only for people who are wealthy or old.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone should have an estate plan because the alternative again is that the government decides.
Sure.
So what happens if you're in an accident, if you're incapacitated? A judge is deciding someone is going to have to make your healthcare decisions
Mhm.
and someone is going to have to make your financial decisions for you. And if you don't choose who that person is, a judge who knows nothing about you is going to make that decision.
Sure.
And they may pick someone who you do not want at all.
Yep.
Or maybe you don't have, huge complicated family and you're like, it's fine, it'll just be my mother. Well, your mother is still she's gonna have to go through a whole court process in order to get the authority to act on your behalf if you don't put these things in place. So it's important for, I think, every adult, once you turn 18, you should have something in place, because it will just make things easier for your loved ones if something happens to you. It's kind of like the adult, in a way, rite of passage, along with graduating high school or whatnot, or it's kind of that transition into adulthood that you can do for your kids. When I have clients whose kids turn 18, we say, okay, now you got to set them up with some basic documents and then they can feel this transition into this planning
Yeah.
for the future kind of thing. So that's one way to look at it, I guess.
I love that. So not only should you buy a house young, you should, because that's how you build wealth. You should
Mm-hmm.
really think about estate planning because that just guarantees that your wishes are going to be met and it's going to help build your wealth as well.
Yeah, and you might not need a trust at 18, but just knowing that at least you can put the documents in place to have your healthcare wishes
Mm-hmm.
or things like that. Or you might not have a lot. And this is one thing I say to people who don't have children.
Mm.
Young people without children often think they don't need an estate plan, but because they don't have kids. But is there a cause that you'd want the money to go to? Is there a niece or nephew who you'd want everything to go to? You have to write that down.
Sure.
You have to put that in, you have to make that legally enforceable, or else it's going to go through the state's plan. It's going to go through probate, and a judge is going to basically apply rules, and the money is going to go where it's going to go. And even if it's not a lot, it's money that you worked for.
Sure.
It's money that you created during your lifetime, right? And you don't want it to just go to whoever or to get lost in the system.
Yeah. The state will tell you where it goes. And I
Mm-hmm.
think they tell us way too much anyways. So
Yeah.
I
Yes.
hate being told what to do.
Yes. Well, that's that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel that. And it's like, most people don't want the government telling them what to do, but then they just delegate this part of their
Sure.
legacy to the government if they don't do anything.
Yeah, I'm an adult. I don't need you to tell me what to do. I mean, there's things that need to be rules and stuff like that, but I'm
Yes,
an
yes,
adult. Don't
but I
tell
know
me
what
what
you
to do.
mean. I know what you mean.
Yes. So what are the most common and costly mistakes people make when trying to protect their estate, and when do they find out too late?
Well, I think definitely the idea that simple documents equal a simple
Mhm,
outcome, or I don't have that much, so I can go online and do some quick
mhm.
form, or now I can get AI to do it. But yeah. Actually, I
Huge.
had a colleague someone brought something in that it was AI generated and didn't have the spouse included, and they were surprised. They were like, "I thought AI would have put my spouse in." I'm like, "Well, you don't know what AI is going to do." But the thing is, like, it's not just about the documents. It's
Sure.
really, there are a lot of factors that go into it. One of the things I say is asset alignment. You want to make sure that the assets actually fit your plan. And the example I give on this is, one time I got a call from a young man who had been taking care of his aunt in the last years of her life. And she was very thankful. They went online and she made a will, everything to my nephew. She wanted him to have everything. She died, and then her life insurance policy went to the brother who she hadn't spoken to in over a decade
Oh,
because the life insurance was not covered by a will. So the assets that she had were not in alignment with her plan,
sure.
with the outcome that she wanted. So I think that mistakes like that are very costly because people aren't thinking about the whole context of estate planning. And online platforms pretend that it gets so easy, you know?
Mhm.
That here, just click a button here, click a button there, put your name on, and everything will be taken care of. But what will be taken care of, and how will it be taken care of? And it's a little bit more complicated.
My sister and her daughter, 22-year-old daughter, passed away in a car accident. They were hit in a car accident.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm so sorry for your
it was a
loss.
bad thing, but because the life insurance wasn't done the correct way, which was supposed to go to her children. Now they were 20 year olds, right? And that's the way the life insurance was written out because it wasn't done correctly. Uh, it went through her, it went to her estranged spouse. Yes. Yes,
No. Oh
they were
no.
separated,
Oh.
so that
Yeah.
chunk of money, and it was quite substantial, went to the
Mm.
spouse instead of the children, which it was clearly put on, but because of that, everything went to him versus whom it was supposed to go to. And my mind is just
Wow.
now going, well, if she had done something like this versus the way it was done, this could have set the kids up, and grieving would have been a little bit differently, right? So
Wow, I'm
yeah.
so sorry to hear
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
such a tragic story.
It was very tragic, and it just made it that much worse that, the life insurance wasn't taken care of the way it should have been. So,
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's a really big thing, the life insurance,
mm,
I mean, people get life insurance to make sure that the house can get paid off.
sure.
They get insurance to make sure if their house burns down, there's money. But then the estate plan is like the insurance for what happens if you become incapacitated or die.
And things could have been a totally different way. So, talking of family, so how would you to talk about structuring the family conversation for this to say, hey,
Oh, this
this
is
is, I mean, this is good. So, because you don't want to just come out and go bang. Um,
no,
um,
definitely not.
yeah,
Definitely not.
you want to have that conversation with people and say, well, this is what I've
Yeah.
done and this is the way I want things. And,
Yeah.
I would say, please honor them. Or would you leave
Yeah.
it to you to do?
Well,
Cecilia, can you please call my family and tell them about it?
It's funny that you say that because one of the things that I do offer is a family meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I'm dealing with clients who have adult children, I always try to warm them up to the idea of we can do a family meeting where we explain how things are going to go and your children can ask questions. One of the things that does is minimize the potential risk of conflict
Uh-huh.
because conflict really comes out of people being blindsided
Sure.
and not knowing, I thought it was going to be this way, or I thought it was going to be that way. And then something completely different is in the estate plan. So that gives children a chance to ask about it and to understand versus, finding out about it
Mm-hmm.
after their parent has passed, or if they're on life support and they suddenly see this thing saying they don't want to be kept alive and they never heard that from their parent before, that can be very shocking. So just having these conversations are good
Sure.
once you've set up plans. The other thing I always hear is like, how do I get my parents to do their planning? I get that a lot, especially from sandwich generation people. And the best way to get your parents to do their planning is to get your own planning
Wait,
done.
what'd
I
you
know
call
that
them?
sounds
The
weird.
sandwich?
The sandwich generation people, the people who have minor kids but are taking care of their parents.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah. Yeah. So the best way to get your parents to do their plan is actually to do your own planning
Okay.
because that puts you on a different level. You are no longer the child asking the parent, hey, what am I going to get? Which is what they hear, even though it's not what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
But if you approach them as, hey, I did the responsible adult thing and I put my plan in place, and did you do that yet? I just, I had a great experience and this is what I did. And then it's different. You're approaching them as an adult who put an estate plan in place, and now you're just talking to them as another adult.
Sure.
And that shifts the conversation a lot when you have already done it. Because when you haven't done it, then it's just like, why are you telling me to do something that you haven't done? No one ever wants to be told what to do, right? Especially by someone who hasn't done the thing
Sure.
that they're telling you to do.
I like it.
So,
Set the example. Yeah, love that.
yes, yeah.
So I think that's wonderful. I love the idea of taking care of this, and even at a young age, I think that's fabulous. I think most people just don't even think of it. I mean, I would have never thought
hmm
of it.
Most people don't. Most people don't.
Yeah, so that's great. I love the idea that uh you're Comic Con.
Yes, yes. I am at LA Comic Con.
And you make it fun,
Yeah.
and that you've made this nerdy book about wills and trust and legacy. That's great. So what's in the future for you? Where do you think trusts and wills and everything's going from here? Do you see any changes coming?
Well, I mentioned AI earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what will happen in the future is that there are actually a lot of attorneys in the industry of estate planning who are documents focused, and they don't do much customization. They don't really get to know their clients. They're the kinds of attorneys who you're once you've signed your documents, you never hear from them
Mm-hmm.
again.
Yeah,
I think those kinds of attorneys will be pushed out of the market because of AI, because once AI gets to a certain level, there's really no difference. But attorneys like me who are relational, who can actually provide real legal counsel, who can really understand family dynamics, who can ask questions that an AI is never going to really understand when it
sure.
comes to human dynamics. I think attorneys like the way that I do. Fortunately, I'm part of a really robust network of attorneys. I think I mentioned I know an attorney in every state, or I can get in contact with one who practices estate planning in this relational way. I know many in Texas. I know like two in Austin. Yeah, I think those attorneys are going to be the estate planning attorneys that will be the ones in the future that people will be looking for because they'll know that their family will actually be cared for, that their wishes are actually going to be documented in a way that AI is just not going to get.
Sure.
Like I'm doing this trust right now for a lady who has twin sons and she wants them to both be co-executors. Is not the best plan legally because they can fight, right?
Sure.
And every attorney before me told her, don't do that. I won't do that for you because they were worried about potential fallout. But I talked her through it and I said, well, let's talk about this. How can we make sure that if they don't agree, there's a pressure release valve, there's a safety net. It's not going to go to court. Let's figure this out. Let's think through some options. And that's something that you're not going to get with a documents only attorney. That's not something you're going to get with AI. AI will probably come up with something that's illegal, honestly. But but
If it
but
can,
yeah, it's
it
that
can
kind
cheat
of
its way. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I'll make something up because AI hallucinates. But that relationship,
Mhm.
right? Having that real legal counsel that's beyond just filling out some documents or that. I do a lot of customizations for my clients because I want it to fit their vision
Mhm.
of their legacy. And like I said before, it's about designing outcomes. Estate planning is about designing outcomes. It's about writing your after credit scene. It's about all that. It's not just signing your name on some legal documents.
Sure. I think there's always going to be transactional people, and then there's always going to be
That's true.
yeah.
It's true.
So,
No, in every industry, right?
yeah,
Even in real estate.
yeah, absolutely. And then then you've got the people that just need people, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you're probably a hugger
Mm-hmm.
too.
I am such a hugger. Oh my goodness. I feel like that is the best thing when a client goes in for a hug. And I'm like, all right, we made a
We
connection.
made it. We made a connection. There you go. So looking a decade ahead, how do you hope the conversation around intergenerational wealth changes the
Oh
everyday
man,
tomorrow?
that's
Yeah.
gonna be an interesting one because we have the boomer generation
Hmm.
is aging. There is the largest transfer of wealth coming in the next decade and a half or so.
Hmm.
And the government is trying to do everything they can to tax as much of that money before it gets to the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Scammers are out there trying to figure out how to get that money before it gets to the next generation. I think there needs to be a lot of education around that and what estate planning can do to preserve family wealth,
Yeah.
especially as the oldest generation starts passing away.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody wants that money, unfortunately.
Yes,
So, and
yes.
if we can do anything to keep it into the hands that it belongs in, would be great.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. And that's what estate planning is all about.
yeah.
Making sure that everything stays within the family and that in the future, there are ways to protect it from getting lost in a divorce or through a gambling addiction or creditors or reckless spending or things like that. Trust can absolutely be structured to protect the inheritances that are left behind.
Yeah, let's keep it where it should be. What is the very first step a listener should take today to start writing their own successful after credit scene? What should they
Well,
do?
I always say you can think about things, but at some point you got to do them. So the best thing is just to put a date on the calendar a month from now as your due date. Like by this date, I will do X. And if it's, I will go buy Cecilia's book, sure, that's great. Or if it's, I will go, write out everything I own in one place in preparation for meeting with an attorney. Just something, one
So
thing.
I think it should be 1 month or one hour from today. They should call or get onto your website, Amo Law, Amo dash, right? Because that's your
And find out
website.
more.
Amo Law,
Yes.
right? Amo dash
Yeah.
law, or get on to LinkedIn. They can also find you there at Amo dash law dash legacy dash planning. And they could get on your Facebook at Amo Law Legacy Planning, Instagram at Amo Law, AMOLAW, dot legacy planning, and YouTube, because you have videos out there as well.
Ah,
Because not
yes, I have
only
some
have
fun
you been at
videos.
this fabulous podcast, but you have been at other ones as well. And so your YouTube is at Amo Law, and that's AMO Law, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
if they want to
And if
reach out
someone
to
isn't
you,
Yeah, and if someone isn't in California, as I mentioned, I
Mhm.
can connect you with an attorney in your state.
That's awesome.
Because
That's
because
awesome.
I'm part of a wonderful network of heart-centered estate planning attorneys who really care about people. In my book, I refer to them as my guild.
Well,
They're like my guild. We all care about the same things, and we
the name of your
spur each
book
other on.
is because Cecilia Amo is an estate planning attorney, and she's a speaker. And as you can see, she's delightful and the
Oh,
author
thank you.
of Your After Credit Scene, a nerd's guide to wills, trust, and legacy. And she's the founder of Amo Law, and she serves clients in California. Do you work outside of California?
So I'm only licensed in
Mhm.
California, but as I mentioned, I know a lot of attorneys outside of California that I work with. Sometimes clients have a property in California or they have children who move to California. So, I have these networks I can collaborate with other attorneys in other states to make sure that families are served in the right way.
So here in Texas, she has people. She has
I
people.
do.
She
I
has
do.
people throughout the whole 50 states. But if you're looking to, let's say, buy real estate here in Austin, and she has estate planning attorneys here as well. So she could help you. Again, Cecilia Amo, estate planning attorney, speaker, and author of Your After Credit Scene, a nerd's guide to wills, trust, and legacy. As you can see from behind her, she's kind of a nerd there, and
Yes, that's
Cosmo Play and like all sorts of things. She's got some stuff going on there.
yeah, I'm a big nerd.
I'm Pam Flitton. I'm your host today. I'm a realtor with over 24 years of experience and expertise in residential sales and client relationships. And your podcast today is Beyond the Listing. And you can reach me on this podcast at Beyond the Listing. And you can give me a call at any time. And I am with Remax Fine Properties, and I look forward to the next one. Cecilia, thank you so much for being with us. And let me give that information one more time. Your website is amo-law-legacy planning. Your Facebook is Amo Law Legacy Planning. Instagram at Amo Law Legacy Planning. Oh, dot right there. And then your YouTube is at Amo Law. Did I miss
Oh, thank
anything?
you. No, you didn't. Thank you so much for all the shout outs and details for my social media handles.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you. It's always a pleasure to talk to someone who really cares about people
Yeah.
in how they serve people in their industry. Like you said, there are more transactional people out there than heart-centered people like us. So it's important for us to connect with each other.
There's always more happening beyond the listing. Stick around and catch the next episode for real talk and insights that help you move smarter and farther in real estate.